8:38 on this Sunday morning. We're getting to a slightly more serious tone, and my guest in the studio is Karen Moss, and she's going to tell us the story of her son, the 6-year-old Alexander, and it has, for me, a big resonance because it's about a situation that some children have to deal with and about which very little work has been done, and there is very, very little consciousness and awareness around that, and that is the congenital clubfoot. So, Karen, thanks very much for joining us this morning. I must just say this, I don't know whether Karen minds or not, but she is the stepdaughter of Hilary Prendini, with whom I worked for long and very profitably at the Star, and we have very fond memories of that time. So that sort of linked the story. So it was very interesting to meet Karen and to see the story of Alexander, her son, who was born with the congenital clubfoot, which is a horrible way to describe it. It's an accurate way to describe it, but it sounds so negative. And the medical term for it is talipes.
Talipes, that's right. Yeah, Talipes equinovarus, which is a real Latin mouthful.
Yes. So tell us about the situation. Tell us about Alexander.
Well, he didn't. When he was born, we discovered we didn't know when I was pregnant with him, and it was a severe shock. And that immediately became aware of the fact that very few people knew what it was.
Yes.
Even the nurses in the hospital, who were actually working with babies all the time. Most of them didn't even really know what they used to ask me what was wrong with his feet. And having got over the initial emotional shock and guilt as well, because you think maybe it was that little sip of champagne I had at a party that caused my child's feet, but of course it's not, I found out later. And then to start the process of how to deal with this, in amongst your early parenthood, you're trying to work out how to get your child to sleep and how to do the feeds, and now you've got this extra hurdle thrown in of how to get his feet straight.
Yes. And there's not much medicine on that because, you see, when you look at that, it's always sort of been assumed to be just one of those things, and the child has to grow up and get used to sort of special boots and all that sort of thing, and that they will never kind of walk normally in their lives again.
Yes, I was literally told by his first doctor, who we saw when he was 8 days old, that I must just deal with it. It's a mechanical thing, it'll get fixed, and I mustn't even have any idea that there was not going to be major surgery involved. So he also said to me that no one really knew what caused it, but no one had really bothered to find out because it wasn't that major.
But not that major?
Yes.
So that, because it truly does impede the child's walking. It doesn't, in fact, make them lame and unable to move, but it really does impede their movement, doesn't it?
Well, we see in Africa a lot of untreated clubfoot and other developing parts of the world. And what happens is if it's not treated at all, the child will actually have to walk on the top of their foot. The foot's literally upside down. So they are.
Well, we see this in the streets. One
yes.
does see this in the streets.
Exactly.
One sees these desperate beggars
yes.
on the side of the street. So what is the cause of it? I mean, I am completely ignorant about talipes.
Well, at this stage, there's actually no known cause. There has been a doctor in America called Matthew Dobbs who's done quite an investigation on it recently, but it's only been the last 3 or 4 years. So I think we're still a little bit away of actually defining what causes it. It does run in some families, so it can be genetic, but then you'll just get an isolated case in a family and no one knows anybody else who's ever had it within the family. So they think
it's not like congenital, or there's no continuing, no pattern or sort of associated set of events that could cause this?
No, nothing whatsoever that they've triggered anything that would actually cause it. What they're saying now, which is, I suppose, quite vague, is it's environmental and genetic, so it's a combination, which means really nothing at this stage until they really determine what it is.
And as your doctor, the initial doctor told you, absolutely just surgery.
Yes.
And what would they do then? Sort of try and rectify the bones?
Yeah, it's a tiny little foot. What they normally do is they cast it for 3 months. You go sort of every week to 2 weeks, and they push the foot straight as far as they can. They only work with the front of the foot, trying to push the toes outwards, because the toes are pointed inwards completely, facing each other if you've got 2 club feet. And what happens after the 3 months is they then cut down the side of the foot, cut all the tendons, pull them over, cut the joint capsules, put pins in the feet. 6 weeks later, they come out of the casts. You re-put them in casts again, having removed the pins. It's a major surgery. I mean, I was told by doctors that they actually use an epidural because of the pain. And then quite often the children have repeat surgeries. I've had emails from adults who've had 6, 7 surgeries on their feet because they don't develop properly because of the scar tissue. And then they often have knee pains, hip pains, often need hip replacements as they get older. So it was a huge concern to me, my child being born with 2 club feet.
My goodness me. So Alexander must have been very brave. And you were also very brave because you said, no, I'm not just going to go by what the doctors said, told me is going to happen. And you started scouting around for other sources of treatment and possibly cure.
Yes, it took me about 8 weeks. Originally, I just went along with I suppose once you've had a baby, your brain is kind of, you just focused on the baby. I didn't even think about the world out there. And then one day I just thought, I actually don't know anything about this. How can I just let this man cut my child's feet open? I don't even know what causes it or anything. So I started researching it on the internet, and 6 years ago I knew very little about Google. Obviously Google wasn't even there, and I put in a search for clubfoot, and the first thing I came up with was a club in New York called Clubfoot.
Oh God, that's a bitter joke.
I know it is.
Oh, that's horrible.
I know.
Okay, well, eventually you got to the good
there
stuff.
are people out there who've got strange sense of humour about this. And then I came across a link that was called No Surgery for Clubfoot, and I thought, wow, this is interesting. It kind of piqued my interest, and I carried on searching. This all happened in one night, and then I came across this website about this man called Dr. Ponseti, and I read about him, and I was just completely amazed that there was something out there. And then I saw, oh God, he was a doctor in the 50s, so he can't be alive. He must be dead, or in retirement at least. And then I found an email for him, so I wrote him a letter with pictures of my son's feet, who was then 8.5 weeks old. And I sent pictures, and I wrote a little story to him, and this was on the Saturday night. And on the Monday afternoon, I thought, well, I'll phone there, because there was a number. And I phoned, and I said, hello, my name's Karen, I'm phoning from South Africa. And I said pictures, and they said, oh, hold on a minute. And this voice came on the phone, and he said, hello. And it was Dr. Ponseti. And I've never been able to get my own doctor on the phone in South Africa, so I was completely amazed that he actually answered the phone. And he literally said to me, well, when can you bring your child here?
My goodness.
That was it.
But that must have made him, what, in his late 80s?
He was 89.
My goodness.
And he's just turned 95, and he still goes into the clinic 3 days a week, and he still trains doctors from around the world. He really is an inspiration.
Well, if you've just joined us, we're talking to Karen Moss, and the purpose of this conversation is a Clubfoot Awareness Month, because as you just heard her explaining to us, when her child was born, when her son Alexander was born, she did not know what had caused this, had no idea what was going to happen to this, and she has been working for her own son, but also building awareness around this. So Clubfoot Awareness Month. We've got the websites are there, and we'll have all that information on our website for you, and it's www.steps.org.za, and then there is another one, www.clubfoot.co.za, and you'll be able to see the story of Alexander, and many of the other stories, and the story of Dr. Ponseti. Now, he does not use surgery.
No, he is an orthopedic surgeon, but he's more of a research. He's also investigated scoliosis to quite a great extent. And what happened was, when he was actually born in Spain, and he qualified literally on the day that Spanish Civil War broke out.
My goodness.
Yeah, that's kind of puts into perspective how old he is. And he became quite an expert on casting during the Spanish Civil War. And then his side lost. So he went off to exile, I think, into Mexico. And then he managed to get a job at the University of Iowa. So he's a Spaniard. Well, actually, he'll say he's Catalan. He's not Spanish, because he's from the Balearic Islands. And he lives in Iowa, and he has for the last 50 or 60 years. Anyone that goes to Iowa will know that it's like going to a small town in the Free State. It's surrounded by mealie fields. It's flat. Most of America doesn't take it that seriously. So when the Spanish doctor did this research on clubfoot and
they thought he was mad.
Yeah, they just didn't take him seriously. And the doctors made jokes about, it's the water in Iowa. And, really, they were quite rude about it. So he developed this method and then started doing it, and then just quietly carried on doing it for 50 years. And then one or two doctors kind of started investigating it and learning about it, and were completely blown away. And then I think from the onset of the internet was when it really started to take off, because then parents started to communicate with each other and found out about it, and then insisted their doctors did it, or else take their child to Iowa, like I did.
So if anybody is facing the challenge of a child with clubfoot, www.steps.org.za, www.clubfoot.co.za, and also there is a support group that you have begun to create around this issue, around your son Alexander and your own research.
Yes, the support group is online. Unfortunately, we don't have anything that's for people who are not on the internet, but although I am available by phone, lots of people phone me. And what we do in the support group is, as we've held 2 seminars here teaching surgeons how to do this method, which is kind of like a way for them to get their brains around the fact that they don't have to operate anymore on the feet and what they have to do. And they're literally dealing with this little person who's awake and manipulating his feet, which is quite unusual for surgeons, because normally their patients are unconscious.
Because that's a very young age for surgery to happen.
Yes.
The first surgery if a child is born with clubfoot will happen within the first month of its life?
No, what they do is they cast, and then they do the surgery at 3 months usually.
Wow.
Most doctors. That was the norm. But luckily it's changed a lot in the last 6 years. At the time that we went to Iowa, about 90% of children were having the surgery, and now it's the numbers are far reduced. The doctors who have changed to the method are reporting almost 100% of kids that don't have surgery.
So light at the end of the tunnel.
Yes.
We'll talk some more about this to Karen, and we'll do so after this commercial break.
The following is a quote from a real person.
President Bush, what is your view on pollution, sir?
Well, I'll tell you something. It ain't pollution that's harming the environment. It's the impurities in our air and waters that are doing it.
Someone needs to read more. Make sure that person's not you. Stock up on books this winter, and with the great prices at the Exclusive Books Winter Sale, you can. Sale now on Exclusive Books. There's one for you.
In studio today is carfind.co.za and bikefind.coza. You know, I've never interviewed a website before, but you've both revolutionized the way we buy cars and bikes.
It's Mission Show.
Folks, that's where you can pinpoint your dream ride search right down to body type. Then you load up an awesome comparative shortlist and request the best, right?
Right.
I guess you too get hit on a lot. Carfind.co.za and bikefind.coza. Imagine if the car or bike you wanted came looking for you.
From in winter to in spring, Morningside Dispensary is open till 9 p.m. throughout all seasons, with a baby wellness section, a wound care section, a dispensary, fragrance, gift and cosmetic section. It's a pharmacy with a difference. Visit Morningside Dispensary at the Wedge Shopping Centre or call us on 88 365 88. We're ready to welcome you.
Your number one news and talk station. Talk Radio 702 with Barry Ronger. On 92.7 and 106 FM.
Karen Moss is my guest. We're talking in the most interesting topic, a tragic one, clubfoot in infancy, about which a great deal was not known. Karen and Dr. Ponsetti have been working on this, and we've got a call from Scylla in Fourways. Morning, Scylla.
Hello, Barry, and hello, Karen. Hi. I must share my story with you, Karen. My son was born, he'll be 23 this Thursday. And the same thing, it was a bolt out the blue, didn't know what it was. Excuse me, nobody could tell me what it was. When he was 2 days old, he went in to have the cast. And then we moved to Johannesburg specifically so that he could see Dr. Burson in Rosebank. He then also had to have the cast changed every 2 weeks. So they straightened the toes out, He also had boots from the States, which point the other way. You know, normally children put their boots on the wrong way. Well, he was supposed to put his boots on the wrong way. And he had the operation with the tendons, and that was all in about the first 2 years, and nothing after that. And today, as I say, he's 23 next week. If he has short pants on, you would notice that they don't develop calves in the legs. Other than that, he's a fantastic child, and I know that he's still asleep and he won't be listening to me now. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with him. He's developed, he wears normal shoes, and he does chefing, so he stands on his feet a lot. So that's a little bit of encouragement for you.
Well, Scylla, thank you for sharing that, and I'm sure there are many others. So thanks very much, Scylla, for calling in. We're running out of time here. For Scylla, there was that option, and obviously had the means to move to Johannesburg. For the African community, where, particularly in the rural community, children born with clubfoot, there is very, very little kind of support system, is there?
Yeah, it's pretty much non-existent, except for 1 or 2 centres where they do get help. Obviously, there's always the ongoing problem of finance, and I've had parents who have contacted me desperately, you know, people who've got access to the internet, who just, I mean, there's one mother who's just recently contacted me from Klerksdorp. She's having treatment at the local hospital. Luckily, the doctor there is doing this method, so they're not operating. But what they're doing is, what happens, one thing I didn't mention is that you wear these boots until you fall, but at night, because it stops the feet from relapsing, which it can do.
So you have to go to bed with your shoes on?
Yes. It is quite a strange thing to get your head around. My son wore them till he was 3 because he had very loose ligaments, so he could come out early. And the first week that I put him to bed, I had to put him to bed with sandals on because he couldn't sleep without shoes on. It was quite strange. Yeah. But the problem with the boots is that they are 2,500 to 4,500 rand from the States. So obviously the public hospitals can't afford them. And when we had our last seminar, we actually brought a guy out from Uganda who trained people how to make these little shoes that cost about 100 rand, made out of basic leather and steel.
What a brilliant thing that is, to bring somebody who can reduce that cost,
yes,
and therefore make these shoes more accessible.
Yes.
So tell us about Alexander. Where is he in his development? Is he completely rectified? Are his feet rectified?
Yes, they're completely normal. They're slightly broader than normal feet because he's I don't know, for some reason he's what they call the funky looking clubfoot. Sometimes they look completely normal. His are a bit odd looking, but functionally they are completely normal. He's got stretchy feet. He can jump, run, climb. He can do anything whatsoever. In fact, we just got his recent report, and his gross motor skills are completely, in line with his age. And in fact, and I've told him about his feet, and he's looked at pictures, and he tells me that Dr. Ponseti made his feet because he, just thought it's something that he needs to know, but that he grew up, even though he won't ever remember it. And
yes,
and if I hadn't told him, he would never know. It doesn't affect his life at all.
Well, I do hope that people who have been listening to this, who are aware of this situation and certainly might know families or anything like that, that this is, I think it's so incredibly valuable when a doctor like Dr. Ponseti is able to go in for a less intrusive, less invasive regime of treatment. It really is absolutely fantastic. Is there some kind of number or some kind of website that people can go to? Because we've got www.steps.org.za and www.clubfoot.co.za, but for a lot of people they can't get onto the internet. Is there a phone number that we can give them?
Yes, my home office number is the one that people will use because it's on the website. It's 011 880 6692. If I don't answer it, we'll take a message, and then I will phone back, or anybody who contacts me.
Well, we will certainly put that on the website. So what's your next step now? This is an awareness month in which you're making people aware of the situation with clubfoot, that there is now a very effective therapy that can do things and achieve results without the tremendously expensive surgery. Where do you go from now?
Well, having now convinced many doctors that it works, I think what I've decided to do is to work with parents as much as possible to get the information out there, because they really are their children's best advocates. And the second thing is to work with the doctors, particularly in Johannesburg, because I live here, to actually raise funds to build a proper clubfoot clinic that people can actually almost aspire to be the same as I were and have the right materials and everything, and we're hoping that it'll be in the new Nelson Mandela Children's Hospital. So I've got a huge amount of fundraising to do, but that is something that really inspires me, because I really believe that the children who don't have access to private medical aid should be getting the best care.
Yes, indeed. We've just had another message, and I'm afraid we haven't got time to take it, but another call from Port Edward saying that their son also was with a similar kind of treatment, with a non-invasive treatment. Son is 33 years old. The clubfoot is now okay, and he's a lawyer practicing.
Oh, that's fantastic.
So these are very encouraging stories. They've got that it's not something that is going to limit your life or limit your opportunities. It's really not there. So we're going to have all of this information on the website, and if there is anybody listening who has some kind of corporate connection, or somebody who would like to participate in some way as a donor or as a sponsor or as a patron of this work that Karen is doing, why don't you phone Karen? That number is 011 880 6092.
Sorry, Barry, it's 6692.
6692, sorry. My dreadful handwriting. 6692 011 880 6692. We will put that in its correct form on the website, and you'll be able to reach Karen through that. And if there is any kind of gesture that you can do, because this is one of those hidden situations, and in the communities, in the urban communities, it's better known, but in the rural communities, these children are literally left untended. That is how they were born, and that is how they have to move through life, and it can be changed. Karen, thank you so much. And I know Alexander is listening, so we say hello to Alexander and say thank you. Fantastic. You've been doing a great job.
Thanks very much for having me.
And coming up in a moment, we're going to be talking about Frank Sinatra and the Rat Pack. It's 9 o'clock and time for Eyewitness News.
This is Eyewitness News.
Michael Jackson's doctor talks